everyone. Thanks for checking out this episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny, and I'm here with...
Mark Seifter.
And you are now at Battlezoo, am I correct?
That's right. I'm the director of game design at Battlezoo. Previously, I was the design manager at Paizo, and in that position, I was one of the main creators of Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Okay, well, congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
So I've been hearing a lot about Battlezoo, which I wanted to talk to you about, especially with the idea that you can play dragons. But before we get into that, let's talk about what exactly is the Battlezoo line exactly. What are the series of books?
So the Battlezoo line is, that's a great question. Thank you. It is a very premium third-party publisher, and until the point where it makes Pathfinder 2nd Edition products and it does convert them to 5e. So it is not exactly following the definition of a second-party publisher in video games because of the fact that Roll for Combat is a licensed partner of Paizo. So if it was exclusive, it would be kind of like a second-party product in video games. But since it isn't, it's not. But it's premium third-party content that uses extremely high quality art that are from like Paizo quality artists, in many cases artists that also do art for Paizo, and content from Paizo staffers and freelancers. And that's just sort of what the Battlezoo line is. It's one of the imprints of Roll for Combat, and it started out with the Battlezoo Bestiary, which is a book supporting the RPG Superstar contest, which Paizo used to run. That's part of why it's licensed with Paizo. They licensed the RPG Superstar to Roll for Combat because it just took a huge amount of effort for Paizo to run it, and Roll for Combat is running that contest now. And the winners, of which there are many, unlike in the past one person won at Paizo and then they wrote a module. Now over 100 people win, and their monsters go into a bestiary. And Battlezoo Bestiary is the first of those books. Also comes with a monster part system, which I wrote as a freelancer at the time, that lets you do something like kind of like Monster Hunter, where you defeated the monsters and then you get parts and you can use those to build items. So that's sort of how Battlezoo, that was their first product. But after that happened, Stephen Glicker, who's the publisher, was talking to me and he's like, well, what else should we do? And I told him about this dragon book that you mentioned. And then we've started doing more and more from there. And eventually he hired me on full time. So at Battlezoo, we sort of have three main pillars we use to define our products. We have quality, which I kind of mentioned before, products that are up to the industry standards set by Paizo and Wizards of the Coast for our design work, writing, and art with top tier authors and artists. And we pay our authors premium rates that are higher than Paizo, and for our highest rates, higher than, I believe, the highest rates from Wizards of the Coast freelance as well. The physical products also reflect this philosophy, and they're printed in the highest quality available at the printer, who is the same printer Paizo uses, and they do not use the highest quality, so it's more expensive. You'll be able to tell when you get the book that it's higher quality paper. So the second pillar is balance. I know a lot of people sometimes get worried that when it's in a third party that it might not be balanced. And I've talked in the past about the fact that that's not even necessarily true. Some third party companies are really, really good at balance, but at Battlezoo, we consider that to be very important. And as the director of game design at Battlezoo, I will be looking at the balance of all of our products going forward, starting with Battlezoo Ancestors Dragons. Obviously, I was just a freelancer for the first book. I did not look at everything that was in it. And I sort of am going to give my guarantee that it's not going to be overpowered or disrupt your games. And if it is, then come bug me on my Discord and I will find a way to make it work for your group. And then the third is interactivity and flexibility, because at Roll for Combat, we believe that so that's the reader or the watcher of this stream, are part of the Battlezoo design team. And that means the games work best if you're empowered to customize those games for your group because you know your group. we don't know your exact group. Like, we can make something that's good for most people, but you can make something that's perfect for you. And so we always present sidebars to customize the content to fit what your group wants to do, or present a baseline that balances perfectly with the base game, and then give you all sorts of toggles to change that around if your group wants a different experience. And we do things like weekly live streams with chat, Discord discussions, and newsletters where we like have built a monster in the newsletter. We just poll. We're like, okay, well, what do we think for the alignment? And we just take them from people, and we have at this point barely, as of this interview, just finished and built our first monster, which is a construct that was created by nymphs and then corrupted by gremlins and has all sorts of weird random abilities that was entirely voted for, and the abilities proposed by the newsletter. So that's kind of what we are. It's a little weird, but I think it's really cool.
There's a lot of great things that Battlezoo or Roll for Combat has to offer, but the dragons thing really stands out to me. Maybe because I don't think I've seen anything like it since maybe Council of Worms from the second edition
Council of
days.
Worms is the one I remember.
Yeah, that's I think that was maybe the first I can remember.
That was the big one.
Yeah,
that's the one everyone says, and that's the one when I was little that I had. So Battlezoo Ancestries Dragons is the book I proposed to the publisher as a freelancer at the time. I told him, hey, I would have wanted to make this book myself, but I didn't think I could afford the arts, and it might not sell enough if I did it. And so I never did. Even at the very beginning when Pathfinder came out, I was like, I kind of want to make a book where you could play dragons, but I don't know if I can. And so he said, we will get it. We're going to do it. So I told him, okay, we can maybe do the chromatic dragons, maybe the metallic, and it's a Kickstarter. So if it gets more people, we can add the other types of dragons. He's like, no, we'll do all of them from the start. And I was like, okay, that's probably like 45, maybe like a 48 to 64 pages. And so he put it on the Kickstarter, and it was like, this is a hardcover book. I was like, okay, well, then I don't have to scrimp for space. I can put all sorts of things in there and make sure I have lots of content, which actually surprised me. That is not how many pages I thought it was going to be. But I was freelancing. He was paying me per word. So I was like, sure. And that's how we have 45 dragons. And I finished it off once I started working for Battlezoo full time. 45 dragon heritages. So it's a 136 page book. And humorously, I like to say that a strength of the book is how little is in the book, given that it's 136 pages. Because sometimes, you get a book and it's like, oh, well, there's 2 pages of like random keys that dragons like because, like, I don't know, we put an article about keys. And then there's 1 page about like, of like some info for each of the classes just in case, and then you like have used up a bunch of pages on that. But this book entirely knows what it wants to be, and that is a book about playing dragons. So there's 1 ancestry, 1 with 45 heritages. There are 2 enormous archetypes: the Draconic Ravager for people who want to do like that Draconic Frenzy, all the attacks, and Dragon Mage for like the more spellcasty dragon. Plus the Draconic Diehard class archetype for dragons that are just like, we do not use weapons and armor. That is silly looking on a dragon. We do the regular thing. And there's a system for hordes where you can just build your horde instead of taking treasure onto yourself and still get your numbers to work out, because you might want to build a horde. And then there's lore explaining each of the 45 types of dragons, some of which only had like 2 sentences that was written in the official Pathfinder source about them. So they each get a page, and there's lore about this ritual called Lux Aeterna that dragons can perform in order to grow stronger faster. Normally it takes thousands of years to get to be a great worm. And so this ritual, it'll weaken you immediately in the short term because you zap all of your potential into yourself, but your magic is able to evolve very quickly if you put it under stress, like by adventuring. So therefore you can get up levels and increase yourself in months or years to the point what normally might take 3,000 years. And so that just sort of explains in world why you're gargantuan now, and it's only been like 3 months since the campaign started.
when I talk to other game masters about playing dragons, usually there's always that fear uh, of the balance of the game might be broken.
Hmm.
How do you handle that exactly? So it's it. I know like Palladium going way back. Well, they had like dragon hatchlings you could be. That was like the best thing they could offer players so that they don't feel like they don't break the game. How do you like so I'm just curious, like so is it like a game that you can only play dragons? Can you mix it up with fighters and wizards with dragons? How
So that's a great question because I know there are other takes of dragons that are out there in other systems, right? Like you mentioned with Palladium, or like in 5e, there's one I think where you can play dragon, but they're just like, this is vastly better than everybody else. And so you just play with fewer players because they're just way better than any other class. That's not what we did here. Thanks to the fact that we have this framing narrative of the Lux Aeterna ritual, that helps us put the dragons into the perspective of a PC. We are able to present dragons that fit into the power level of a PC. And because there are archetypes that let you use your class feats on being a dragon, in addition to just your ancestry feats, Pathfinder 2nd Edition offers the perfect tool set to play a dragon and make it work. That's actually why, like a few months after the game came out, I was sitting one night and I was like, I want to do this. I didn't for years because I didn't think I could afford the art. But it's because Pathfinder 2 is the rule set that makes this work, because you get ancestry feats, and so you can gain those to gain dragon abilities. And those archetypes, Draconic Ravager and Dragon Mage, they cover a lot of ground because you're able to use your class feats on dragon-y things by taking the archetypes, just like any archetype in Pathfinder 2e, right? Like you would take pirate and gain pirate things. Well, you can do that with dragon stuff. And so if you want to go all in, you can do both. And that really lets you customize your character. So if you want stronger dragons, but other people still want to play their elf and not be weaker, here's the cool part. I mentioned that our thing for Roll for Combat is you're part of the team, you can customize your game, and we're going to help you. So we have a sidebar that says, hey, you want to add more dragon abilities? We made it really easy for you. In the Game Master Guide in Pathfinder, there's some variants. Ancestry Paragon that gives you more ancestry feats, or free archetype that gives you archetypes for free. Well, guess what? If you give your dragons free archetype on a dragon archetype and an ancestry paragon to get more dragon ancestry feats, you can give your elf twice as many elf feats, and they can use free archetype to get like an archer archetype or an eldritch archer or something like that. So they're getting something that's equivalently good. So you're able to power up the dragons in a way that is seamlessly easy to also power up the other characters if you want. And we also have at the bottom of the sidebar, it's like, oh, if you want the dragons to just be better than everyone else for no reason, and they just are, you can. It's easy. Just give them more things and don't compensate.
is there anything that can help game masters who may not be familiar with running a dragon campaign, of how to run or how to keep it interesting?
So I would say that the main tools there is I tried to write sections that would be useful and interesting for the game master and the players. One thing I think that I've seen a lot online, I don't know if you've seen this, is people who claim that anything that has lore in it is inherently something that only the game master is going to read. And I think that that's not inherently true, but that is often true about most books that we write, because we write lore that is aimed at the game master only. Like, I think one of the most famous examples of a problem with that in a player book is like the Eberron book when it came out in 3rd edition D&D, had a bunch of player things, and you were building your Warforged, and then there was a sidebar that was just like, the leader of Karnath is secretly a vampire and nobody knows. And it was just like right on that page. And it was like, this was an example of like, wait, hold on, that was lore for the GM. We don't want the players to know that, and it's right there. And so a lot of lore is almost stuff that the GM would want to keep secret. And even if they don't, it's very background setting information. So I feel that lore can be written so that the players and the GM find them valuable if you are very careful about thinking about what kind of lore the player wants to know. They want to know, what is my character like? What matters to my character? what is my character's day-to-day, like what does it feel like to use my abilities, things like that. Some of the things we put in Secrets of Magic, like lore about like ways that to get back your refocusing with your Eidolon or something like that. And so I wrote lore about each of the dragons that was heavily focused so that if a player wanted to play that dragon, that they've got what they need to inspire them onto a character concept or just think deeper about what they're playing. But it also has the information the GM needs to think about, oh, what do your family members think about the fact that you just did a ritual like this? And I was able to explore, I guess, some, there's always sort of a tension in real life too, when people make life decisions and like that is different than what other people have been doing traditionally. And so we have these traditionalist dragons who don't perform the ritual and the ones who do. And it's sort of a magical fantasy way to explore that without sort of getting into situations where people might be like unwilling to talk about it or think about it because it's too close to home, if you see what I mean.
So if I would ask you, like, hey, I want to use this book, what setting would you put this in? Is there a certain part of Golarion that might work best? Is there do you feel like this would be perfect for Kryn or something in the D&D side? What would you do with this if I asked you to play?
I worked really hard to make sure that this is going to work anywhere, as long as you're willing to accept that this Lux Aeterna ritual is this new, by dragon standards, ritual that has started showing up among dragons. Now, it does have 45 dragon types, which include all of the dragons ever created in Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition that are true dragons. AKA, they have young and old and great worm. Those are the true dragons, right? Like fairy dragon and dragon turtle and wyvern are not. So it has all of those plus 6 brand new ones. So if you're in Kryn, you're a little bit like, you can do it and it'll work well, but you have a bunch of types of dragons that aren't in Kryn. So you won't be able to, if you want to use those, you'll also have to add them to Kryn. And some of the D&D settings. If you're in any Pathfinder setting that is assumed to have all the Pathfinder dragons, though, you're set. Because while the world of Alucard, which is the world of the Battlezoo setting, and we have an adventure path called the Indigo Isles 3-parter adventure that is coming out after Dragon Ancestries. We're starting on doing, development and layout now that we're done with the Dragon book. And that one is in Alucard, and that means you'll find some NPCs who are these type of dragons who've done this ritual and are living in the town, because the world is inherently sort of based around knowing that. But there's nothing in Battlezoo Ancestries Dragons that forces you to run it in Alucard or even like really specifically indicates Alucard. It's really set to run in any of your Pathfinder games in Golarion. There's any area in Golarion that has dragons, this would work great. You just sort of bring up the idea that this ritual has started and you're set. In almost any home game in Pathfinder as well, unless your homebrew rule is there are no dragons or something like that. But for D&D settings, there's a slight barrier of entry, which is that not all of these dragons existed. But maybe that's a positive, because now you're adding them to your D&D setting and it's making it a little richer with more dragons.
I was about to ask you if you were planning to do an adventure path based on the Battlezoo books that have come out. Can you share us, your little tidbits about that?
I can. So it is a 3-part adventure. So Battlezoo Ancestry Dragons, I wrote every word other than the words that were written by proofreaders and editors and the like. But initially I wrote it. The Battlezoo Bestiary is written by over 100 authors, because it's all the winners, plus the section that I wrote at the end and some from Patrick Reaney, who was the one who developed those monsters. So the 3-part adventure, A Jewel of the Indigo Isles, is a really fun and very interconnected adventure that has just a lot of GM advice to connect things together or to handle contingencies and things like that. And it's written by 3 of the most experienced adventure developers in all of PF2 and all of Paizo, because it's got first part is Patrick Reaney. He's the senior developer who does Pathfinder adventure paths. Second part is Ron Lundeen. He is the development manager who manages and also does all the other Pathfinder adventure paths that Patrick is not doing. And the third part is Linda Zeiss Palmer, who's the development manager in charge of organized play and digital. So all those other adventures for Pathfinder Second Edition that are not the adventure paths or the long modules, the ones that are done digitally, like Pathfinder Society scenarios or bounties or things like that. So that is an all-star team of 3 authors, and it's really cool. It starts out, no spoilers, because it's just called like the search for the missing map or something like that. You have one half of a pirate map and you need the other half because you're going to find the treasure. And the publisher likes to describe it as a kind of a Pixar meets Indiana Jones meets fantasy Guardians of the Galaxy style adventure. It doesn't mean it's all bright and friendly, right? Like Toy Story has some parts that are dark too, if you watch it, but it does mean that it's a lot of fun. So I guess that's what I say. I won't spoil anything that happens after you start looking for the map, but as you might expect for an adventure path type thing, things get out of hand.
Before I talk about the rest of the books that Wolf of Combat has, one last thing about the dragons. Of the 45 that are there,
okay,
which one is your favorite?
Oh gosh, someone asked me to pick my favorite from each category other than chromatic and metallic. So I've now picked my favorite from each category, but picking my favorite completely out of all of them is very hard. It's very hard. I don't know.
Okay.
I think I'm going to say today that I'm feeling lunar slightly, not even because there was much information about them before I did any work on them. It was just like lunar dragons come from outer space and they watch mortals go about their lives. And it was like 2 sentences. And so I wrote a description of them where basically they consider the mortals' lives to be like a reality show or like some kind of telenovela that they're watching, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at what's happening with these mortals, and look who's getting together with who. And then the ones who become adventurers and perform the Lux Aeterna ritual, they're like the kind of person who just sort of in the middle of a theater when a play is being performed, they'll just like yell at the stage or like tell people, don't go into that door to the movie or something like that. And so they just had to get involved because they think people are making the wrong choice or that something's going wrong. And all the other lunar dragons are like, look at this person. They're just interfering with what's going on. I wonder if this is going to get interesting. So I was just I found that very funny. That they might not be my favorite if you ask me again in 10 minutes.
So the other books you have, you also have a pirate adventure. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So that's Jewel of the Indigo Isles. And so it's not that you're pirates, it's more that you are looking for a treasure of a legendary pirate. So it's a 3-part adventure. It takes place in the Indigo Isles, which are a set of islands that are by default in the world of Alucard, and there's some Alucard specific stuff that you will have to remove if you're not playing it in Alucard. Not a huge amount, but like some like deity names and things like that. And it's a small island chain, so it's pretty easy to add it to your world if you can swap around with the deities. And so yeah, basically you have half of this map that has been found of the legendary founder of the city that you're in. And she was a pirate who's hidden her treasure somewhere, and only someone who's good enough can find it. And the royal family has, the royal family, who are parrot people, because parrot people are like the predominant ancestry in this city, have tasked your group with finding the other half of the map and finding the treasure. And that's how it sort of starts off. And things escalate quickly from there and lead to some pretty epic stuff that goes on later on. But it would be spoilers to tell you much more than that. But it's a very multi-ancestry setting. There's not that many like humans or the or like the core ancestries really around in the Indigo Isles at least. And none of the monsters in that adventure, in that 3-part adventure, are from the regular bestiaries. They're all either from Battlezoo bestiary or they're presented from the adventure itself as brand new monsters. So it'll be very fresh if your players have all fought an owlbear. Well, they may not have fought a parrot bear, for example.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So what is next for Rollful Combat? I know you mentioned the adventure paths. Is there anything else? Will there be like a guide to Arakar? Hold up.
So that's something we want to do someday, but it's not announced, it's not on the schedule yet. But I'm very excited, and I have some very good freelancers who pinged me who would be very good at doing that if or when we eventually got to it. But we don't have it quite on the schedule yet. What's next as of this taping is that we have an April Fool's thing that we're going to put out for tomorrow. But after that, we have not announced our full slate of what's coming up, although in the Kickstarter update for the last Kickstarter, I think that Steven said that there's a big mystery project and it's going to be amazing or something like that, and gave no details about it. But we have made it our cards pretty clear that since we did another RPG Superstar contest, we're going to do another Battlezoo Bestiary. This one is called Battlezoo Bestiary Strange and Unusual. And it has the winners from this year who they stepped up their game even more than last year. There's some really fantastic and wacky monsters. Some of them aren't wacky. Some of them are creepy. They're all strange and unusual in some way. Some of them are cute and unusual. It'll also have more of the monster parts system to expand on it if you like that before, just like the first Battlezoo Bestiary, and some additional other content. So we've already announced that that's going to happen, but it is a mystery what else is coming on top of that. And I will say it is a very exciting answer to that question, but I cannot tell you.
All right,
and we will be shouting it from the rooftops and possibly come to you for another interview once that's actually announced, and once the the Kickstarter starts that includes the new Battlezoo Bestiary Strange and Unusual and the secret stuff.
I would love that. I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing coming out of Rollful Combat. I love creative ideas, especially in role-playing games. You know, you think after 50 years of role-playing games, you think the creative wall might have been hit, but no, I feel like we just got started.
It's one of the reasons that I decided to become the director of game design here at Battlezoo, is because at Paizo, I love working with my team and other teams. That just the coworkers are amazing, and I love working on Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which I also still get to work on. But you do definitely have to put out the product that is right for Paizo at that time, and it may be a product that is more of a central appeal, and that makes sense because this is the main system. So if the central appeal says, well, you know, you've got to put out a book that is this type of book, and it's got to have a little bit of everything to make sure it appeals to a lot of people, then you know, we learn to love the parts of the book that we're going to love, and we do it with passion. But in Battlezoo, it can just be like, yeah, this entire 136-page book is one ancestry and some archetypes to back it up, and like some appendices, and that's it. And you can, when you're a third party and you don't have to carry the main line, you can just kind of do some really wild and creative stuff. And I like wild and creative stuff, so I have, you know, more creative control doing wilder things, and it's a higher position that comes with more seniority and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for the interview. They were great questions, and I hope that the viewers are excited as I am about hearing about some of these things.
Oh, I mean, who doesn't love dragons?
I love dragons.
Well, so our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.